Hello, Charlie TCG here. Welcome back to another Retro Thursday. Today, we're looking at Sun and Moon to Lost Thunder, arguably the more recent favorite retro format of more modern era sort of players. This format was definitely before all the huge tag teams and VMAXs really dominated the format and had a huge amount of rewards with the combat mechanics and single prize and two prize archetypes that really roamed the format. So today we're going to look at exactly what sets were legal and what the tournaments that were around there. Now, there were specials, were there regionals, were there internationals, and kind of dive down to see what the results in these tournaments were. It's worth looking at some of the key cards as well as the huge archetypes that really dominated this sort of fan favorite retro format. So if we just look at the legal sets, they were all the way legal from Sun and Moon to Lost Thunder. Quite a big sort of set. It was right before Team Up, which was obviously the introduction of tag teams. And this one, there were a couple gimmicks that were in this sort of format. There were Prism cards and Ultra Beasts. Prism cards were really interesting sort of archetypes in there, where you could only have one of those cards, think of them like Radiant Pokemon, but you could have multiple other Prism cards. Very powerful, either basic Pokemon or stadiums or supporter cards, or energies in some cases, which were really, really good. And Ultra Beast, which really had a huge effect in the likes of your prize cards, how many prize cards you had left or remaining, and could really open up how powerful these attacks could go with these Ultra Beasts. So really interesting sort of introduction to Sun and Moon and some really cool cards around with it. Now, there were quite a few tournaments happening out there. There were lots of specials, regionals, and internationals. In fact, the format actually kicked off with the Sao Paulo International happening over in Latin America, but I'm not actually going to talk about that first. I'm going to talk about that last because we can kind of see how the format has evolved. There were a ton of specials in this one and quite a few decks that did perform well. The one that performed really well was Blounce, Persephone with Naganadel. This is what I talked about, Ultra Beast. Persephone GX is a really good ability attack, and it focuses a huge amount on the Lost Zone. Obviously, Lost Thunder had loads of Lost Zones or cards in with it. 50 times the amount of fire cards you put in the Lost Zone, obviously it's going to rack up to a huge amount of damage. If you put 5 energies in the Lost Zone, you're doing 250 damage, which is a lot of energies in the Lost Zone, and it's going to be really powered up with Naganadel's ability, which allows you to attach an energy from your discard pile onto your Pokemon, or obviously Naganadel, and because of that, you can use that ability constantly with Persephone to kind of get a huge amount of energies out in the discard. In the Lost Zone, sorry. Other sort of decks that performed well was ZoroRoc and LAIC, which really did perform hugely well in loads of tournaments happening around there. And Passimian and Garde and Psychic Mallet were really good single prize attackers, which had the capability of using 2 prizes to really help finish up the game. I really liked this sort of loads of different archetypes to kind of focus around this format, which was really, really powerful. And then the likes of the regionals were very different. A lot of them were dominated with these ZoroRoc decks. ZoroRoc Gyarados, obviously a very infamous one, deck which was won by one of the Schultz brothers, and then ZoroRoc Decidueye Ninetales, which is really powerful. ZoroRoc has an amazing ability, Trade, where you get to discard a card from your hand and draw 2 cards. Think of it like literally Refinement on Curlier right now, which is performing very well in the Gardevoir EX decks, and Riotous B-Team, which has 20 damage times the amount of Pokemon out in your play. Doing 120 damage is really good. When you think about it, that's pretty much 2 shots and everything in the format. It's really good to team up with lots of other attackers. Having the Decidueye is a really good sniping capability and doing a good sort of 2 to 3 hit, and a load of Ninetales GX with an amazing ability with actually when you evolve into it, search your deck for 2 item cards. This allows you to potentially get the Ultra Ball plus Rare Candy to get the Decidueye out potentially turn 2, and having other Prism cards like Ditto, you have multiple ways to get out this alone Ninetales as quickly as possible. Other sort of really good ones were as well with Alolan Ninetales was with the Swampert Gardevoir archetype, which was won by Jimmy from Daras over in America. This is really good because Gardevoir does a huge amount of damage. You can attach quite a few energies to it. Swampert has a really good ability to draw some cards and do a huge amount of damage outpower there. Because these are stage 2, Alolan Ninetales is a really good inclusion in this one because you can get that evolved to get those rare candy and potentially the Ultra Ball to really get these Pokemon out as quickly as possible. Really interesting kind of seeing how these decks would evolve. And if we just look at some of the winning lists that happened over in these sort of tournaments, we can see it's exactly the Persephone Naganadel deck, which I mentioned previously, which won load of these special tournaments happen over there. Now, one of the key cards in this deck was B-String. You could only play if your opponent had 3 or 4 prize cards in there, but if you do, you have to search your deck for 2 basic energies and attach them to your Ultra Beast Pokemon in play. Now, this is really powerful because most of the time your opponent is going to take 2 prizes or heck even 3 prizes, and unlocking potentially playing 1 to even 4 beast rings in a turn is really, really powerful. Flooding the board with 8 energies is really, really good, especially in the Persephone, because you pretty much set up your entire damage around the entire board. You also have Beast Energy, which is the only Prism card in this sort of deck, or sorry, 2 of them, which allows you to only be attached to a Beast, Ultra Beast, is any energy it can be, and it does 30 more damage. So doing that additional more damage with a Persephone is really good because you can only discard 4 to do that magic 230 damage. Other really powerful cards in this deck were obviously the Guzma, which was the switching card in this one, the gusting sort of effect, but you have to switch one of your Pokemon on the bench. So really interesting effect to have that gusting effect, not the use of the Lysander and Boss's Orders, which we're more commonly used to. Ultra Beast is a really good card to kind of search your deck for those Ultra Beast sort of cards. Getting your Nakanados, getting your Persephone is really, really strong. Other sort of really powerful cards in this deck were Tapu Lele, which lets you to search your deck for a supporter card and put it into your hand. And it can also be attacking, doing 20 damage times amount of energy attached to both active Pokemon. They learned the lesson from Mewtwo Wars, it doesn't attack for weakness. Marshadow here with the Let Loose ability has haunted so many people's dreams for years and years on from its event. Basically, it's a judge as a Pokemon, and you can obviously play it turn 1. Now you can't play supporters turn 1, so Let Loose Marshadow, it's really, really powerful, really trying to disrupt your opponent, and then hopefully they can kind of not get that extra some power they might need. Mysterious Treasure is another really powerful card in this. You have tons of Psychic Pokemon in this play, and you get to search your deck for a Pokemon, a Psychic Pokemon, if you discard an energy. Really, really, really powerful. Another good supporters like Cynthia and Lily, where Lily gets you if it's your first turn in the game. When you used to be able to play supporters turn 1, you can draw until you have 8, and Cynthia is still shuffle, draw 6. Really, really powerful, very good list, which is kind of going around. Other sort of really powerful ones are like ZoroRoc. This card here is absolutely dominating the format. ZoroRoc, obviously, this huge trade and writer speed team, which I talked about. We have Lycanroc GX with that Bloodthirsty Eyes, which is a really good gusting sort of effect with it. It also hits for weakness on ZoroRoc, which is also really good. It's other really good GX attack, and back then you could only play 1 GX attack per game. Think of them like obviously your V-star attacks or abilities, but mostly they were only just attacks. And if you did, so you have 50 damage times the amount of Pokemon your opponent has in play. Chuck a counter gain if you're behind in prizes. That's only 1 fighting energy, or more importantly, a unit energy in this sort of format. Really, really powerful to get those big one-hit KOs very early on. The likes of Alola Muck, which we've seen in quite a few of the decks, which you're going to think about. It lets no basic Pokemon have any abilities, both you and your opponent. Very good to shut off like the Tapu Leles, and more importantly, those Ditto Prism stars, which are kind of flooding the board state. We also had the likes of Acerola, which lets you pick up a Pokemon if any of your Pokemon, which has a damage counter on there. And obviously Professor Elm's Lecture, which lets you search your deck for Pokemon which have 60 HP or less. Really good to try and get any of your Pokemon you have out and possible, which is really, really powerful. And I really love the capability of what ZoroRoc had. And Ditto Prism Stars, both having other sort of deck attackers, not attackers, more like support Pokemon like Makago and Muck in there, and having those to really help with your execute your game strategy. Other one, this was the Garde Swampert Ninetales deck. And when was the last time you saw 3 stage 2 Pokemon which actually won a regionals? I know it's been a very long time, and all of these are really, really powerful. Likes of Solgaleo GX, which performed really well, obviously, in the Mewtwo deck, which Henry Brad won Worlds with, but has that good attack, which does 120 damage, and you can attach 2 energy cards from your discard pile to your Pokemon in play. I believe you get to reuse some of your special energies, like the double colors, and that special boost energy, which can only be attached to evolved Pokemon, which I believe don't have a rule box, and if they are, they require 4 energies if you are behind. Very, very, very powerful archetype indeed. And obviously, it has to load of Ninetales, giving you the extra draw power, which you can get by getting any of the Energy Lotto, Max Potion, or more importantly in this deck, Rare Candy and Ultra Ball. Really, really nice, interesting to archetype. Another one which is really powerful is this Passimian, which has a really cool ability attack, which does more damage for the amount of Passimians you have in play. So obviously, if you have a full bench of 4, you're doing 130 damage. This teams up with Shrine of Punishment. Shrine of Punishment, a very, very key stadium for these single prize archetypes to go around, which makes sure that your opponent or all EX and GX Pokemon which have been in play, put 1 damage counter on them in between turns. This is really good because they can rack up the damage with the likes, obviously, your Choice Belt. And then more importantly, you have Passimian, the other Passimian, which has more damage for your Passimian's attack. So you can potentially get those big one-hit KOs on single prize Pokemon and 2 prize Pokemon. And it also hits for weakness on ZoroRoc, so this was a no-brainer, and it then became a more of a spread sort of deck with the likes of Tapu Koko. Free Retreat plus Flying Flip, which has 2 damage counter to every single one of your opponent's Pokemon in play. Team up with Trying to Punishment and Passimian. You'll gain those big one-hit codes every single way, every single turn. We also see the first introduction of this Oranguru with the Instructability. Then you draw into you have 3. This was obviously played a lot in more the Zacian lists and these later on in the format, but it's really, really powerful archetype around the game. I really like this deck. I think it's really fun, and I really play quite a lot of this when I was understanding how Passimian works. So some of the key cards which I talked about here is this Instruct Oranguru. Basically, drawing to have 3 cards in hand is really, really powerful. Ditto Prism himself, the Almighty Evolution, which lets it be evolve into any stage 1. So this is really good because it also works with GX Pokemon, and it's really nice to see that's not limited with that. ZoroRoc and Tapu Lele, we have mentioned these quite a lot. ZoroRoc for the amazing capability, the consistency of trade is super, super strong. And Tapu Lele, not only having a Wonder Tag, but the Energy Drive attack kind of makes it one of the best support Pokemon. It really overtook from Shaman. When Shaman was legal for at least a couple of years in Worlds, it didn't see too much play because Tapu Lele GX was so powerful. Other sort of key ones is that Cynthia, the shuffle until you have shuffle draw 6 is really, really powerful. I remember trying to spend like nearly £5 on a supporter card for this when there was such little draw supporter in the game. Kind of shows how powerful it was. Rescue Stretcher, an amazing recovery card where you get to put a Pokemon from your Jessica pile into your hand. Really, really powerful. Or shuffle 3 Pokemon from your Jessica pile into your deck. Think of it like you're guaranteed like a good like Ordinary Rod sort of way, mixed with Clara, mixed with everything. So I really, really like the capability with it. Guzma is a really interesting gusting effect where you get to obviously gust one of your opponents and bench Pokemon, but you also have to switch one of your Pokemon from the bench Pokemon to the active. This was kind of seen with more of an introduction to having more free retreat Pokemon out in play, having likes of Tapu Koko in them, which is really good. Not only is it a really good attacker, but also really having that handy being that free retreat option to constantly switch back into your other sort of attacker or potentially have your attacker powered up on the bench. Final Punishment, I love this stadium. Again, it's for the stadium which I remember spending nearly £10 on because it was so powerful by putting 1 damage counter on each of Pokemon GX and EX in play in between turns. Really, really good. This kind of racks up quite quickly and make sure that people try to discard it as quickly as possible. Try and not kind of get set up for those big key checkmate scenarios it had to offer. So let's look at LAIC. Very, very good tournament. It had 630 players. Quite a bit small when we compare about how big Pokemon tournaments have become now, but back in 2019 in Sao Paulo, and it had a day 2 cut with 9 rounds on day 1 and then 5 rounds on day 2. If we just look at the top 64 meta, we can kind of understand exactly what are the most powerful archetypes. We can see ZoroRoc as kind of taking up nearly 50% of the meta by having a different control, the Decidueye and ZoroRoc variants. With the ZoroRoc Ninetales kind of like wrapping up there to nearly being the percentage-wise. Because of how powerful ZoroRoc is, we're seeing a huge increase of other sort of fighting archetypes. These Buzzrock deck and Passimian are really good because they can hit for those weaknesses on ZoroRoc to try and go around that. And because of the increase of these having these psychic weak Pokemon, we saw the likes of Malamar. Malamar is very, very powerful by having the likes of, think of it like Dynamotor in the Mareep right now, or Electric, if you remember back in Noble Victor's time. Getting attached a psychic energy from your Jessica pile to one of your Pokemon is very, very strong. Having also some good sort of archetypes in here, we see a bit more of a range with the likes of Rayquaza, Granbull, and Blounds, by being a big stellar, huge competition winner. Not competition winner, competition like contender to be a very, very powerful archetype. So we just look at what the results were for the one. We saw here that ZoroControl actually won. It utilizes the likes of Oranguru without resource management attack, which lets you put 3 cards from your Jessica pile to bottom of your deck in any order. This is good because you can team up with ZoroRoc GX. You're never going to be, you can draw into those cards and never deck out with having Oranguru out there. You could just resource management like the Rescue Scratcher and Oranguru, stuff like that. So you'll constantly be training and these Oranguru, so you're always kind of being that very destructive capability and try to keep it stick. Granbull was a really interesting card in there for 1 energy attachment. You can do 160 damage. Really good for a stage 1. There's one caveat. You have to have no cards in hand. Obviously, this was played to good effect. Even Tord Reckless got a top 8 placement with it. Top four, we did see quite a few this ZoroRoc Decidueye Ninetales. It's really good to get that sniping capability out there and having those big sort of attacks out there with the likes of the Decidueye and Ninetales to help you get that set up. Other sort of top 8 decks, we did see Blounds, we saw another ZoroControl, we saw another Granbull, and obviously that Buzzrock. Buzzroll was an Ultra Beast, which could do a huge amount of damage for fighting type, the hit for fighting type weaknesses like ZoroRoc. Obviously, that Lycan Rock to kind of like switch out your opponent's active Pokemon with one of their bench. Very, very powerful sort of deck. And if we just look at the winning list here, we can see exactly how powerful it is. Utilizes Articuno GX. You might think that's very sort of confusing, but for a single energy, you get to discard all energies attached to both active Pokemon. For just one Rainbow energy, it's not too bad because you have Oranguru's Resource Management to shuffle them back in. We can see a load of disruptive cards here, like Counter Catcher, Crushing Hammer, as well as the Pheromosa and Team Skull Grunt, as these big disruptive capability cards in the deck. Because of the resource management, you're constantly going to be chaining through them for likes of Rescue Stretcher and Lysander Lab, really stop them tool cards being able to be used in effect. Macago is a smooth over, is really powerful, but once for your turn, you get to pretty much switch to the top card with one of the cards in your hand. I believe that is the effect of it. It's been a while since I read it. And I believe that is kind of how powerful it was in this deck, and teams up well with Ditto as well as obviously Alola Muck, because you can use them as those big sort of capabilities to try and lock out your opponents possible by kind of like setting up your ZoroRoc, trading into it, constantly having the resource management on Guru, and try and deny them from using Counter Catcher, Enhanced Hammer, try and stop them from getting any sort of foot in the door. As you've noticed a lot of this here, there was a load of special energies, a load of different cool archetypes as well. So that's why Enhanced Hammer became such a key staple in these control decks, because of how powerful like double colors, rainbow energy, and more importantly, those unit energies really had become. If we just look at the second place Granbull list here, it's really interesting. Again, using the Macago ability and that Granbull to additional 130 more damage if you've got no cards in hand. Apricot Maker was a really key supporter. Let's you search your deck. Think of it like Ball Guy. Search your deck for 3 ball cards like Ultra Ball, Great Ball, and Nest Ball, and they're kind of like those instant throw effects, that extra discard effect with that. So you're constantly trying to stay in that 0 card hand. Once you get to it, you want to stay in that way. There wasn't really too much hand disruption, unlike the likes of Judge and Let Loose Marshadow. So we kind of didn't worry too much about how your hand's going to react to it. So you honestly constantly want to have the capability to always be attacking with that all-out attack. Having a bit more switching cards is really good, and trying a punishment that kind of help do that extra more damage. Zeb Striker with that sprint ability lets you discard your hand and draw until you have 4 cards, and team up with Oranguru, so you have multiple different ways to try and get out the attacks as much as possible. You might be confused, say, Charlie, why is there a Fiery Flint? We play no fire cards in this deck. Well, it's just another card to get that extra discard effect with this, so you're constantly trying to get out your Granbull to get that big all-out attack as quickly as possible. Then it's the Zoro Decidueye Tails. This is one of the top 4 archetypes, very similar to one I did showcase earlier in this video. Again, as you can see, high counts of special energy, so that's why ZoroControl is such a good archetype in this game. Does play a thinner line of ZoroArc because you have other sort of attackers. Your Decidueye is a really good attacker with its attack to do 90 damage, and then obviously its GX attack is really powerful to get any of your combination of cards from your discard pile into your deck. And obviously, Alola Ninetales is really powerful with that ability to get all those item cards you need. It's to get the Enhanced Hammer, to get the Rare Candy, the Ultra Ball, the Timer Ball if you're lucky with it. Obviously, the Counter Catch and Field Blow. So really powerful archetypes in this one. And Counter Gain as well. You can attack ZoroArc. You can use other sort of Pokemon for much less energies out than play if you're behind in prizes, which I really, really like this deck. I think this is definitely one of my favorite archetypes. And there's lots of different ones here. I think Decidueye is amazing. Guaranteed sniping, you don't need to discard anything like what you've seen in most recently ones. So I really think it's quite a cool archetype in general overall. And kind of round up a little bit of the archetypes, we're looking at these Buzzrock. It's I talked about that Buzzroll GX, huge amount of damage it could do with that Jet Punch as well, obviously doing 160 damage. You team up the likes of Diancie, Beast Energy, and obviously Choice Belt, you're getting ranking those big one-hit kills in every single Pokemon out there. By Diancie does more damage, your fighting Pokemon do more damage, Beast Energy does obviously more damage, and Choice Band does more damage to GX Pokemon. Additional, I believe, 90 more damage is very, very powerful in this style of deck. Brooklet Hill is a really powerful stadium card, which lets you to search your deck for a water or basic fighting Pokemon and put them onto the bench. Very, very powerful because you can utilize that with the Alolan Vulpix. I haven't mentioned this now, but Vulpix was really powerful because it introduced us to the no energies attacks. That beacon ability attack for free is to search for 2 basic Pokemon and put them onto your bench. I really like this deck. I think it's really powerful having the likes of Beastring to get those big attack. Set up your big attack for your Buzzwole and baby Buzzwoles, in the late game is really, really strong, and having multi-switch to switch some energies across if you have to utilize the beast ring. Really, really powerful. I kind of love this deck as well. Did play quite a few of these sort of archetypes as well, but this is when I was kind of like phasing out from playing this as competitively as possible. Other sort of really finishing off is this Blounce list, which actually played by Zach Lesage, who had got the top 8 placement. A little bit different to what we've seen before with the choice helmet to reduce some damage out there, and having a higher count of fire energy is really, really powerful. Different sort of Poipole in this one by having the poison effect, but kind of going with the same sort of strategy. You're utilizing Ultra Space and Mysterious Treasure, trying to set up as many of your Naganadals as quickly as possible, get those discarding, and then obviously if you take the opponent takes one of the knockouts, utilizing Beast Ring to flood the board with energies in the late game. Very, very powerful, one of the strongest archetypes, I believe, and kind of like took the form by storm and even got second place at Worlds in that year. So why do people love this format? Well, number one is there's no free surprise Pokemon. This was a huge problem what Pokemon had to have, and people really kind of disliked the tag teams at start because it kind of made these basic Pokemon have these huge capabilities and kind of made a bit more of a disgusting sort of plays. There are so many different decks to choose from. ZoroRoc GX has so much range. We've seen here, we talked just a fraction of this one, but there are 4 different ZoroRoc decks I talked about. It just showed how powerful ZoroRoc is. Think about now how many decks have Curliers and Garde now, just as the amazing draw factor. ZoroRoc GX Zach was also a really good attacker. It had really good comeback cards, like the counter energy, which lets you pretty much be, if you're behind in prizes and you're not a rule box Pokemon, you get to utilize and can be a double rainbow, which is really, really good on single prize ones. There's multiple different decks to choose from, both single prizer and 2 prize Pokemon, and even stage 2s were really good in this sort of format. And we're just seeing that as well. Like we're seeing like stage 2s, basic Pokemon, and stage 1s dominating in the international, which is really lovely to see this sort of format. And kind of finish off in the close, I want to talk to you about some of these obviously key cards. Once I've mentioned, you can see it a bit more in full. The Baby Buzzwole here with that amazing Sledgehammer attack with 30 damage, and if your opponent has exactly 4 prizes, you do additional 90 more damage. Very, very powerful. Again, if you team up with obviously the Diancie, with the Beast Energy and the Choice Band, you're doing a huge amount of damage, and even with Swing Around, again, very, very huge damage with this one. Marshall with that amazing Let Loose ability, we get to one play, get both players shuffle and draw 4. Very, very powerful. I know people have absolutely hated this card and still haunts people to their dream. This Lola Ninetales, we've mainly focused on its amazing attack, but ability, but has a decent sort of attack, just 30 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon, which is really good. And if your opponent's Pokemon is an Ultra Beast, it is knocked out, having an amazing GX attack, kind of like stopping those Buzzwoles or even the Blounce out in play, which is really good to kind of guarantee a KO. I really like this capability what this Lola Ninetales had. Not only did it have really good usage with the ability to search for any of the 2 item cards you had, but having that big GX attack which can kind of finish off any of the Ultra Beasts in there is really good in those situations. And like we looked about, Lycanroc GX had that bloodthirsty eyes and really good damage output with Claw Slash, kind of pretty much KOing the ZoroRoc, which is good. And obviously that Dangerous Rogue GX, which does 50 more damage to each of your opponent's bench Pokemon in play. Very, very powerful. And then some of the trainer cards as well. Lily, back then when you used to be able to play Sports on your first turn, drawing 2 of 8 cards in hand is really powerful. Your turn doesn't end, you still carry on. Really, really, really strong. And then Professor Elm's Lecture, which lets you search deck for 3 Pokemon with 60 HP or less. This is really good in those stage 2 sort of archetypes as well. This is where pretty much a replacement of Bridget when Bridget rotated. Beast Ring as well, an amazing sort of powerful archetype. Then you search your deck, which is really good. Like it could just be a look at the top 5, think of like Electric Generator or Max Elixir, but no, searching your deck for those 2 basic energies and attach them, but obviously having the limitation of just being a beast, Ultra Beast, and the prize card from the opponent. But I love this interaction. It was so interactive in that sort of age. And then obviously Mysterious Treasure, an amazing search card for Psychic and Dragon type Pokemon, which really started to come back in this sort of format. So I hope you found this useful, kind of giving that insight into the Sun and Moon sort of era to Lost Thunder. I think this is definitely a more cool sort of understanding. If you want to see how Pokemon has evolved, like comparing it from 2010 to this one here back in like 2018, like start of 2019, we can see there has been quite a bit of change in there. We're seeing a more increase in these stage 2 Pokemon did see a bit of an increase, and of course these 2 prize Pokemon with the likes of Ultra Beast as well, kind of introducing a different mechanic into the game. I really love this format and definitely can see why it has a lot of love to it. There may not have been as many tournaments happening in that sort of region, mainly having very small specials, but because of that, I think people have just grown to love and appreciate this format after having all these big like tag teams and VMAXs dominating the meta. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like and subscribe and comment down below what retro format you want me to cover next. I think I'm probably doing a base set sort of one, and I hope you guys enjoy that. I will see you guys in a few days for another video. Bye for now.